Righto, money miners. Jeez, buddy. Trav, you got public service announcements.
I do, Matty. Yeah, I'm pretty well. Couple of announcements for the money miners. First one is we've got a podcast interview where we're on the receiving end with Mark Boris. That's on his the Mentor podcast.
The Mentor, bloody. I had to listen.
Yeah.
I listened to ourselves. It's bloody good.
You like listening?
We're
to your
pretty
own
cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. Big Boris. He's got a much more schmick studio than us, doesn't he? What a team. Timmy and his team. What a legend.
He's got the nippers there fucking doing everything
Weapons.
for him. Yeah, cheers for having us, lads. He's such a GC, such a good bloke.
If the money miners want to listen to that, we'll chuck a link in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing I'm looking forward to, Matty, is this Saturday. I want to say Saturday. We've got our GC dinner. So when we launched the daily email, the director's special, there was this, incentive for people to refer as many people as possible. And some people went above and beyond. I think they had to refer 20 people to get an invite to the dinner. And I think we're having a dinner. There's like 14 of us going or something like that. It's going to be pretty. I'm looking forward to that. And even before the dinner on Saturday night, we're bringing all of the GCs, and I think it's the same. Well, there might be a slightly smaller number, but if you referred 50 people, you got an invite to come on the podcast. That's going to be hectic. I think we're going to have the most people on this podcast that there's ever been at one time by a long stretch. Almost all of them are going to be in person. One dialing in, but there's going to be like 8 or 9 people on the podcast. Don't know how that's going to go. It's going to be wild, but I'm looking forward to that as well.
God knows what office modifications you're going to do to make that possible, Trav. Buddy, get on the director's special, everyone. It's bloody flying. Trav and JD do such a bloody good job every morning.
Yep.
For bloody chucking all the word on the decline and in the weeds and JD's news articles and just the bloody details, the summary of everything that's going on in the market, and I tell people about it. That's my thing.
Moneymind.com. Mate, you're not going to get an invite to the next GC dinner if you're not on the email.
Yeah, get in on it.
It's like we're talking ourselves up, but we're not because of the division of tasks amongst us. Yeah. We can do it and be humble about it at the same time.
Yeah, I'm humble about doing nothing. Yeah, right. We've made a show out of nothing today.
What do you mean, mate? This is a show.
Yeah, it's a fucking show, and I like it. But it's like there's no I wouldn't say there's big, massive news out there. But geez, there's a lot of shit we're looking for that might be a bit considered dormant or just stuff bubbling away in the surroundings behind the scenes.
Great description. There's a lot of activity happening, a lot of dynamics that make you really just want to pay attention. We're almost throwing some darts. I think some of them get a bit prediction-y, but we're really just going to talk about all of the big themes, all of the company dynamics, all of the big consolidation stories that we're paying really close attention to because we think this is where, the next 3 months of news flow is going to come from, these set of stories.
I'd argue there's a bit of substance behind all of them, I reckon, Trav.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate. All right, Trav, what's how do we start? I don't even know how to intro this.
Let's go to your list, Trav. You've jotted down a few. We've all got our own sort of lists here.
What is giving you a stiffy in the market at the moment?
I don't know about stiffy, but
I don't think this first one gives you.
Yeah, no, I've got that many things here. The only way to do it is to kind of rapid fire through them, but I think we're naturally going to end up having kind of a bit of a chin wag about certain points, and that's okay. Just bloody butt in any time, but like in the energy theme, I think this is a huge theme playing out. Huge theme. It's going to keep playing out. And so there's some stocks, energy stocks. I think I'm particularly focused on. Boss Energy, right?
I've heard you talk about them.
We've had some discussions about them lately. So they produce first drum. Remember that? First drum of uranium. How many drums have they produced? I want to find that out. Is it just 1 drum? 2 drums?
How much is in a drum, Trav?
I think a drum is, it's about 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, so it's not much.
Exactly. So I'm obviously big insider selling there. I'm really curious to know if they're having trouble ramping up because I've just got this red flag kind of radar. I'd love to know how ramp up's going. Are they able to have they got any constraints kind of getting the uranium that they need in order to process it in time? There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and very closely paying attention to Boss, especially because I look very unfavourably upon the insider selling.
These leaching projects, especially a restart one like this is interesting because you could surmise the previous operation probably took the good shit based on
we
human.
go for high grade first, right?
Based on human nature,
Mining 101.
That's what I would have done. But it's like there's two. They're not two processing plants, but it's like two different. Mining's one. Usually, you're mining and your processing plant, and trying to get the mill right during ramp up. That's a big thing. But it sounds like also like trying to get the leaching right.
Yeah,
like it obviously takes a long time and a restart project. So whether they're and from what Mike Olkin said, talking about when Kazatomprom, I'm not sure if these guys are going into old areas they've already leached or not, but the stopping and starting leaching projects is can be difficult.
Yeah.
So just mate, as I said, you got next 3 or 4 quarterlies. The quarterlies don't lie on the amount of. The description and that can be a bit bloody varied, but hey, the amount of uranium that will be produced will be disclosed, and it'll be interesting to see how much that is in relation to their feasibility studies and the ramp up.
Totally.
So, mate, eyes are on it.
Super. I'll stick with the uranium theme, Matty, your favourite. So
You buttering me up early.
Of course.
Yeah.
Deep Yellow, I think, look, I love the ambassador that Johnny Borshoff is to the industry, but I remain sceptical that he'll opt to debt fund the rest of Tomas. So let's just see how the funding shapes up there. I want to see if and when he reaches FID, how that whole funding mix comes together. That'll be an interesting one.
Have you heard of? Can you stream the uranium with these uranium contracts? Can you stream them like a copper?
What do you
prepay?
stream a byproduct normally though?
So streaming, yeah. I think what you're meaning is prepay, right?
Yeah, is that a thing in uranium?
Yeah.
It'd have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Financiers you can do whatever you want,
Yeah.
So you make the rules.
Maybe
right?
that's the middle ground.
Yeah. Who's the commodity trader that trades shitloads of uranium? I want to say I can't remember if it's not Traff. It might be Mercurio. I can't remember. One of them. Anyway. Then you've got still on the energy theme, but pivoting away from uranium. So I've been looking at Strike Energy. I think, JD, you own a few, so ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding.
They're trading like their come raise at the moment, and there's probably consensus. They're short, but they're one of the most shorted stocks, so they're trading like their come raise. I'm very fascinated to see how that will play out, if they do or if they don't, because that'll just be curious to see how that unfolds.
What are they raising for?
Well, I think
whalering.
There's a read through that they're cash flow negative on their small scale ops at the moment.
Yeah, righto.
They did go backwards from December to March. I don't love how they report. They report one of these liquidity and undrawn debt. Not mentioning that they actually have I think $16 in debt. It's a bit opaque, but I think
CFOs get sensitive about us talking about that. I've heard.
more broadly, there's a decision to be made in WA, the export one. I'm not sure if you'll get into that, but
and that's the broader picture. Like the whole WA energy market in general is really, really interesting to me. I mean, most people will sort of talk about the East Coast market and those dynamics being kind of fascinating, and I think they are as well. Even just here in WA though, right? You've got like Wesfarmers lobbying for cheap gas. The gas players are lobbying to be allowed to sell more to the export market at a higher price, obviously, than they can do domestically. Beach, who are bringing weights here online, they've got this crazy capex conundrum. Hancock and MinRes are going to play a role here at some stage in some way, shape or form. Santos just laid off like 200 people in their Perth team. I think all of that just leads to this fascinating setup in the energy space here in WA that will probably just mean deals are going to happen.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what happens with Santos after the whole merger failure.
And Hancock and MinRes not just waiting, they've already got interest, they've already postured to the government here what they want to see happen in the future. And just on energy more broadly, we're going to talk a bit about the big deals that have been happening in the States, because I think it's all part of a larger theme, and that's why, like you said, Trav, East Coast of Australia, West Coast is all interesting because there's a larger thematic at play here.
I reckon rip it out. Just keep the energy flowing, JD.
Keep the energy flowing.
I reckon flow it.
All right, it's a bit of a segment, but let's rip in.
Why not? It feels right, because I saw, what was it, Marathon and Conoco?
That's right.
The other week, it was like $25 billion merger or something?
23, rounded up US $1 billion deal, and it's just the latest in a series of massive deals we've seen, all in the States, predominantly in the Permian there in in Texas mainly. And there are parallels to hard rock resources, which is why I sort of got into it today. But I think it's bloody fascinating, Matty. So $23 billion US, and that's, the only the fourth largest deal that we've seen in the last half year. So we've seen Exxon, Chevron, some huge deals. And
what were the biggest ones? Like, how big were they?
So Exxon gobbling up Pioneer Natural Resources for roughly US $60 billion.
Yeah.
Chevron gobbling up Hess for US $53 billion.
Massive.
Occidental did a $12 billion US dollar deal, and Diamondback Energy did a $26 billion deal. Some huge deals. And yeah, for any sort of Standard Oil nerds out there, I'm not sure if there's too many, but Standard Oil was broken up 1911, a long time ago, into 34 different companies. This announcement, Conoco had just been whittled down to predominantly 5 companies. That is ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP, Marathon, and Conoco. That's now 4. So, they were broken up because they had monopoly power a long time ago. And it's just fascinating to see. We'll chuck up a little chart of how they are all coming together.
Isn't it unreal when you talk about Exxon, like a $50 billion deal, to consider that's less than 10% of their market cap? For a deal that big?
Yeah, and that, you don't hear about them so much in the context of the broader market at the moment. But we talk about metals and mining and hard rock assets. They're just so much smaller than these energy deals. Like the Anglo one was an enormous deal. That was massive. But that sort of blew our socks off. That would have been the biggest deal in a long time, not the biggest deal since half a year ago. And to put into context what's happening in North America here, the US is the largest crude producer in the world. And I think that's a sort of fact that's gone by the wayside of everyone. Everyone just thinks of the Middle East. But since the shale revolution sort of kicked off in the late 2000s, they rocketed back up after decades and decades of declining. Everyone sort of thought it was going by the wayside there. And the US went from a massive energy importer to an exporter again. So
when all that shale came on, though, I think there were some lofty projections, and then the decline rates of shale kind of kicked in. But
huge, and when they were really kicking off, the oil price was over $100. So a lot has happened since then, but it did have a massive impact. And looking forward from where we are here in 2024, I think there's a lot we can tell from how these deals have been structured, because they've been predominantly scrip deals, and there's a few different tells you can get from that. One, the bigger companies have bigger multiples, so they are seeing it a worthy investment as opposed to the buybacks, which they've been doing for a long time, to buy these smaller companies and just get even bigger. There's this race for scale going on. And the sellers, they're also attracted. They see the upside. We're not talking about deals being done at massive premiums. The Conoco one was a 15% premium. The Exxon one was a 9% premium to the 30-day VWAP. So these listed oil and gas players in the States have been whittling down from about 65 just 5 years ago to now about 40 companies, and it's getting smaller and smaller. The FTC, their sort of competition regulator in the States, have looked at a lot of these deals, but they haven't actually done anything. So maybe you're a bit concerned if you're a service provider out there, but to date, the FTC have sort of waved them all through. And how I see all the consolidation playing out in a broader context, and where the parallels with what we talk about is in the sort of big boom bust cycle. And old Hedley Widdop, who I interviewed maybe half a year ago, he's got this, lion clock, he calls it, and it's the boom bust cycle. So 12 o'clock, you've got the crash, and that's sort of typified by company liquidations, no more exploration happening. And then at 6 o'clock, you've got the boom. And I think to sort of depict where we are right now, you could say we're in between 3 and 4 o'clock in the oil and gas land. And
3:30. Let's
call it 3:30, Matty. And Hedley had a similar analogy for gold. I think he was talking about when he did a write-up just a few weeks ago. So if you look at the last decade, you see declining capex, declining exploration. The reasons for this are super well discussed. We don't need to go into it. But essentially, the big oil and gas players, just like the miners, destroyed a load of capital in the last cycle. And they had all this cash. They did terrible M&A. I heard this stat that 52 or 53 cents on every dollar they earned was just destroyed.
They tried to buy mining companies.
Yeah, they did all sorts of stupid stuff, and shareholders punished them for that. And they said, next time it comes to it, we want returns, we want buybacks, we want dividends. We don't want you pissing away the money again. And the companies learnt from that, and they didn't invest the capex into the ground. They didn't do new exploration, and that's how the cycle has sort of gone. There was sort of some bumper profits earned when what happened in Russia and Ukraine played out, when it started playing out 2 years ago. there was a real bump up, and the companies just they did buybacks and they did dividends, and they gave the capital back to shareholders. So I think the expression that typifies where we now are is aggressive buyers and cautious sellers, or mergers. And why I think that's important is because I think it's indicative of better times being not too far away in the future in terms of higher oil and gas prices. So
the other thing on the backdrop of these companies too is they experience pretty substantial de-rating in terms of like what multiple they were trading at it as just a result of like, you know, institutional ESG money kind of being mandated not to own them anymore, those sorts of dynamics. So massive de-rating in the sector, and what these companies by consolidating now are telling or implying by these deals is we think these multiples are as low as they're going to get, because the best use of our capital is to buy another company at these multiples, because we actually think there's room for multiple expansion and, you know, bloody commodity price uplift from here because of the global energy crisis.
Absolutely, and that demand is not going away like a lot of people think it is. And that effect, what you're describing there, Trav, is way more pronounced in Europe than it is in the States, those ones. So maybe in the future we see a lot of them getting tied up. So there's a couple commodities which I think are sort of great analogies, copper and met coal, for slightly different reasons, and also slightly different reasons to oil and gas. But I think there's just a lot of similarities. These assets have finite lives. Money needs to be invested to maintain, let alone grow production. So in the case of copper, the incentive hasn't quite been there with the price. Met coal pricing has been a bit more accommodative in the last few years, but for other reasons, there hasn't been investment in new assets coming online. So I think when the sort of uptick continues to play out as we go from 330, Matty, to 4 to 5 to 6, there's going to be a lot of commonality with what happens in oil and gas, copper, met coal. And I'm fascinated by the bigger picture of how these things all play out. And then we can get into what we do on the show and talking about the more micro details of how it influences the specific companies.
Oh, I love it, JD. How do they protect themselves between 6 and 12?
They don't do what they did last time and just destroy the capital and spend it on stupid stuff. They distribute it when the time is right. When they're trading at crazy big multiples, they cash in on that. They sell assets when they think they are trading way above their intrinsic value, these sorts of things. It's sort of basic management of understanding what your assets are worth and understanding where you are in terms of the broader cycle.
Fucking, I reckon there could be a JD corporate advisory in the future after he sort of goes beyond money and mind. Like, it's just JD, you especially because of your international expertise and future dominance.
I'm not so sure about maybe a money of mine advisory, mate. I think the three of us together.
If you want a decline and some stope optimisations, I'm your man. What about the bloody shiny yellow stuff, the gold, Trav?
Mate, like our roots, like you always talk about.
Gold is the roots of the show.
Yeah, and this is there's a lot happening in the Aussie gold space. A lot happening.
Gold's our safe haven, because when we've got nothing to talk about, we'll just talk about some of the gold stocks.
And it's definitely a sector where there's a lot of companies, and you probably don't need as many companies, so we can always speculate on consolidation.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys saw that stat about half the investment in natural resources exploration dollars goes into gold.
Which seems a bit wild, doesn't it?
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is.
Because it's easiest.
That's a show in and of itself, how that happens.
In the Aussie kind of ASX listed gold space, I'm looking at a lot of companies. Gold Road, in particular, I've talked about them a bit recently. What are they going to do here, right? Like, so I actually reckon their costs are probably going to improve and margin look a lot healthier next quarter. But the pressure is on them to substantiate their existence or bow out to the highest bidder, I think.
There is such a common theme between all the companies that you have your eye on. They just could be doing something a lot better.
Substantiate your existence.
It's like you need pressure to do deals, right? And I'll focus on the pressure points. Pressure point.
Stupid cigar pressure points.
So now Ramelius, I think they're always likely, but they're kind of the most likely of the gold producers to be active right now. But there's a shitload that could all do a deal, to be honest. If you think about it, mate, Emerald's got a market cap of $2.4 billion now. It's kind of amazing.
Mate, Ramelius are going to have probably $600 million in cash on hand by the end of the year.
Yes. and they might be
Maybe
priced for their valuation might reflect an expected, dividend yield, but that dividend yield might only be there for 1 or 2 years, if you know what I mean. So they're going to be
it's like, as I said, it drops off very quickly. But they predicted well over 500 by the end of this financial year, and then they got another 2 quarters beyond that. So
yeah, and they're going to let's say that their script valuation is based off an implied div yield, which is honky dory rosy. They're going to be wanting to use that script when it's priced that way to bolster their pipeline of growth, and that's a real driver of them to be really active here. Kind of like we've seen a bit play out with the takeovers panel stuff. In addition, so Regis, right? I actually don't think that they really want to develop McPhillamys anymore. I kind of think they're souring on that. So they're going to be active on the deal front as well, I reckon. Northern Star, who even knows? I don't. They've just been pretty subdued on the deal front. I don't know if that's going to change or not. I genuinely don't. There's lots of these established miners without growth. Ramelius, God Road, even Red Pro Forma. Sure, they'll talk about growth being acceleration of King of the Hills, but then Regis, given McPhillamys, even Bellevue, once their debt reduces a bit, will probably be hungry again too. So there's just a lot of these established producers who are absent growth and need growth, and that's an excellent environment for the juniors with a decent project. And I think that's why you've seen the share price dynamics in Sky, for example.
Northern Star, might fit what you're saying, JD, about the old, the 6 to 12 part, is that they might actually, we talk about Carasoo Dam maybe having another good year left in it, and then that they might start actually unloading off a few things. I think it looks like they just want to keep things simple and execute this super pit expansion. They're going to have a 27 million tonne operation, still trying to get Pogo to do its thing. There's obviously growth everywhere, but will they actually cash in on and offload some assets? Who knows, and just really simplify the business. It's would they take on a big development project or a big take over a massive project whilst they're expanding this super pit to 27 million tonne? I just can't see it happening.
No, but would they use their script to do a merger vehicle or something like that? Where something that doesn't require cash, would they use their script? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer.
Or unless someone takes them over.
It's so
unless
fascinating.
Agnico put a bloody offer on them to get their way, that would be more of a possibility than Northern Star buying something.
They're not really Agnico assets, though. Maybe Jundee, I don't know.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, this need to do a deal, this need to have a growth story. I mean, all the companies, think of the conversation we had with John McDonald, and how many of them had broken even from buying the asset, constructing the asset, and getting there? None, one.
Well, what did he say? There's two gold mining companies. Was it Perseus and Silver Lake were the only 2 gold mining companies trading now that have made more money than they've spent?
Yeah.
Free cash flow
which is just astounding.
Yeah. So because Ramelius is the example, talking about, I know I guess your view was, Ramelius probably are doing this to get West Gold. They still want them.
I think Ramelius need to do a deal more than anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. It's and we've all talked to a lot of people about all this. There's that many bloody opinions about what's happened and what's going to happen. But, the gauge I've been given is Mr. Zepner will be very patient and possibly just sit back and watch and will only buy on value, whereas West Gold will buy to grow.
Do you think it could be more accretive to shareholders for them just to mine all the assets, wind it up? It'll never happen, but it could be more accretive just to distribute the cash over time rather than be
Well, that's a very interesting question to ask, because if you think about the dividend yield that these companies trade at, it's some of them it's like a 3% dividend yield, some it's a 5% dividend yield.
Some it's less.
So they've got more incentive to ensure that their market cap stays elevated for shareholder returns than they do kind of paying it out over time via a dividend yield that, because it's just they're in reality, it's going to take years and years and years to ever realise that free cash flow. Are they really priced that way? I don't know.
Sounds like you're saying they're overvalued in a way.
But if what happens with these gold stocks, say Ramelius, start distributing all that dividend and then drop their market cap and lower the index buying of themselves? Does that have a negative impact on the share price as well?
It will, yeah. The index buying is a whole another element that's sort of baked into the share price because the index has bid up the stock and bid up the value by nature as it's reflected through the market cap. But yeah, it's not something we see companies sort of make themselves smaller by choice very often, although more it could be the right decision in certain circumstances.
What could Ramelius buy, right? So here's what I'm like. Obviously, we talked about Spartan plenty of times, and I think we've got to do a ding, ding, ding on that one.
Yeah.
I could also buy Bellevue, maybe. You got to pay top dollar for it. Like, I don't think it's going to be easy to get a deal done there.
What's that? Bloody God. That'd be, what, a 2.5? Well, fucking Bellevue nearly as big as Ramelius.
You're probably right. Yeah, I think where's relative value in the space? It's actually if you take a positive view on bringing something into development that's not in development yet. It's just there's not much of that that looks very good.
It's true. It'd be a bit of a all script with a premium with Spartan and looks like something that'd make sense, but it's trying to get it to the level where Spartan would accept it. Yeah. But that'd be.
Yeah.
But then I suppose Spartan are accepting the cash. Like, you're bringing a shitload of cash in. You're never going to have to worry about bloody cash again to fund everything, the restart. But they're not bringing in shitloads of mine life. Aeronatus looks like it's got that 10-year plan, but, Penny's about to finish. Edna May's going to finish.
Q's coming online. But
and that's not a forever thing.
It's not
either. What was it, 260 mil NPV or something?
Yeah, that was at 3,000. If you chuck spot in there, chuck another, 125 on top of that.
Yeah. So it's pretty similar to different scales maybe, but similar to Silver Lake Red 5.
Yeah.
Like in terms of what they're pretty much exactly the same. In terms of Spartan's got the project, Ramelius have got the cash.
Yeah.
But
and will Genesis get active? Or have they just head down
Genesis is a bloody that's I like what Fisty said, like the only reason that Tower Hill hasn't been mined is because there's a railway on top of it, which makes it
a good thing, That's a huge positive catalyst for them if they can actually get that.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, like just how the cost to mine these flat dipping ore bodies, because you can only fire a small amount because it sits on the foot. It's just, and that's what Ulysses and Gwalia is. It's like bloody tough going. So it's really, really dependent on getting this Tower Hill. Like that's the growth story and everything, but it's just really, I think they're going to make more off fucking pits than they are underground.
There you go.
So, and Ulysses, it's shallow, but you still got to truck it to Gwalia.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to be, and I'm sure they will admit it is going to be, it's challenging. It's not as easy as, say, what Ora Banda are doing, just with a nice bloody narrow vein, thin ore body, whether they got the grade or not, and they're going to actually make positive cash flow. It's just so much different.
Yeah.
So,
And
I don't think they'll. Can't see it happening. Can't see him getting out of that district. Genesis.
Well, what if who else is sort of in that district? Like, so that Leonora Laverton district is Emerald's development project. This is like in the back of my mind, a bloody throwaway potential idea is an Emerald Genesis tie-up, but then with a bloody Cambodia project. But I don't know. They both are pretty fully valued, right? Like, so yeah.
Yes. Don't
know about that.
That North Laverton's got a bit of work to go, hey?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Whoa, geez, I like that, Trav. I like where you're going with that.
I got some more while we're on gold. And this is now moving to that. I guess what are the undeveloped projects? We talked about Spartan. So De Grey is one. I think we're expecting supposed to be expecting details of a debt facility by mid-year. That was sort of the wording in the latest equity raise. I think there's a risk that more equity kind of goes into that before it's all done and dusty and positive cash flow. That's happy to say that one out loud. And
the thing with it, if these massive projects like that getting developed by, you have to bring in your own team, create your own team, and you're creating a whole new producing company from an explorer. It's such a feat. It'd be, you look at those project execution and everything. I would be like, you'd be so much more comfortable watching a Newmont develop that rather than De Grey, the explorer, who's now a producer.
Yeah.
Like you recruit the expertise and everything, but it's such a big feat to create a big mining company.
And they're kind of getting into that part of their life cycle right now where the potential acquirers, they almost just sit back and wait for the hiccup before they make them. They're kind of like Liontown, the moment they're sort of in development and all that sort of stuff. Yes, like they actually had the bids from Albemarle and all that sort of stuff, but that afterwards, everyone's just sitting back and waiting for the hiccups to be opportunistic and pick it up rather than paying full tote sort of thing.
I think that was at about, Albemarle put that bid in at about 11 o'clock, JD, I'd say. I reckon that was band 10, 11, approaching midnight.
Maybe 10, and they had to hold on while it's going through the works.
Pulled out
and
at
then
12.
thinking,
Stick with the goldies before we pivot to lithium, Matty. I know you've looked at Greatland. You've got some thoughts on that one.
Oh, mate, gee, I like you dropping it early to just keep the bloody Stewie Hines interested if he's listening. Shout out, Stewie, you're a GC, mate. What else you got?
Yeah, I thought. Did you want to talk about Greatland or no?
Oh, Greatland. Yeah, no, I didn't know. I'll tie it into the copper.
Okay, easy. Yeah, happy to do that.
which is random.
All right. Yeah.
But
you've got me intrigued. So let's talk lithium, right? So like Pilbara's the company I want to talk to. They've been, disciplined on the M&A front. When are they going to move is the question. They are the most equipped by a country mile to be a predator, but they haven't moved in terms of bidding for anything that we know publicly. And I guess the question I have is if they don't move now and bid for something, does that mean they think it's going to get worse? Do they think there's going to be more stress in the lithium market before they move? You know what I mean? So obviously they capitalised on Altura at the optimum moment, and that led to the phenomenal success that Pilbara had kind of post that period in time. Are they trying to? Are they waiting for more distress before they move?
Hats off to them for discipline, I reckon, for the journey they've been on, the amount of cash they gotten when lithium was running fucking hot. Yeah. They could have done something stupid, but they didn't.
They've got A-grade management. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Fuck, look at positivity on the show. Jesus Christ, Pilbara, bloody record that one and play it back to yourself each night.
Liontown,
yeah.
Oh, fuck, this is an interesting
one. And
this
is, they kind of fit in the category of things that they could be opportunistic on in the future. I mean, the pathway to control is a lot more complicated because you got Gina there, but just like Liontown, they're expected to update the market on OPEX and capital requirements this quarter, which were sort of key parameters in that base case financial model that remains a CP before they can, draw down the bridging debt facility that was, only it was like a month of debt funding or whatever. So I'm not saying that I expect Liontown not to be able to draw down their debt or anything like that. I'm just very interested in what the new real numbers are going to be in terms of, CapEx to complete and operating costs to per ton of production. Because now that they've got, done more work, like those numbers when they come out in the market, I think are going to be really interesting to a lot of participants.
Talking to people that work there, fuck, they reckon it's fucking huge.
Oh, it looks enormous.
Once they hit this ore body, even though I say it's higher cost underground, but it sounds like they're going to. There's just this fucking big thing of light. They're going to be punching out the tons under there. It's just all bulk. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
There's some fascinating videos on the YouTube channel if you want to take a look, and you can see just what you described there. It's pretty phenomenal.
I wouldn't be spending money on that in these lithium prices, but anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you put to the refinancing of the short-term loan? Do you put a bit of risk on that if they can't?
So no, I think probably not, because you might be able to do another bridge facility, extend it. I think the credit case to make. I mean, it's how big's the debt quantum? It's I can't remember the number. Is it 600 million or something like that? I can't remember the number of the debt facility.
But it's like 600 or 700 to take
ballpark,
out the Ford one.
Ballpark there or whatever. Once you've got all that sunk infrastructure in there and all that sort of stuff, underwriting that much money is probably pretty palatable, because the equation as a lender is so much different.
So
to
you can
secure
it. You can secure it a lot easier.
You got comfort, and as soon as lithium has a bit of a bump, then you're in the money and happy days. If worst case scenario, you know what I mean. So I just think it'd be pretty easy to underwrite the bigger question is going to be what do you have to pay for it? What's the cost of it? What are the covenants related to it? All that sort of stuff. I think they'll get at that facility.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Bloody Baldania is the interesting one. Either it's really fucking shit, or they're like it's just never been mentioned of being disposed of, or anyone never really heard anyone interested in buying it, or what they're gonna, if it means anything.
I got to take the other side. I do think Kathleen Valley is the interesting one here.
Yeah, but
like
wouldn't
Baldania
like
is
just
interesting, but
get a bit of cash in the door.
It's so far down on the list for them right now. They've got so many other
Well,
things on their
Flip
plate.
it off for a bit of cash, couldn't you?
It's a massive bargaining chip, I think, when you just like they've got to do some negotiations at some point. Like you know, how's it going to play out with Gina and Chris Allison at some point in time, right? Well, Baldania is a massive lever in any future negotiations with Allison because it's right there in his part of the world where he's got. So I think you keep it for maximum leverage in any potential future negotiations with Allison, which we should bloody.
But on the flip side, you want to sell it when you're not a forced seller as well, not when you really need the cash. So,
I think their access to equity markets is sufficient enough.
I do agree with what you say there, JD. If MinRes are wanting to do a deal with Liontown, I don't think Baldania is the one that's gonna be might be a bargaining chip, but
I think it probably. I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
I mean, we saw
it's a
just
bargaining chip.
yesterday, MinRes still with that little deal with Galileo.
Lithium, right?
Still
They've got
interested.
like their feet all over that whole
they're
region.
becoming
except
like
for
the
Baldania.
fucking Creasy of lithium.
Yeah.
Like, they're just bloody owning everything.
That's funny, given that Creasy owns what 27, 37%.
Oh yeah, it is Galileo.
And then, like, let's talk about MinRes, right? And this will kind of steer towards the iron ore territory. But MinRes looking out for their whole road divestment. So what's their balance sheet going to look like as at 30th of June, right?
That's imminent, eh? Apparently,
he was adamant that it'll be announced this quarter. So I do think there's a bit of an imperative to have it probably even completed, by 30 June because you want to show the cash on your balance sheet, all that sort of stuff. We've heard some indications that they might be tapering spending in certain other parts of the business just to kind of, I think that 30 June date and balance sheet, test date and all that sort of stuff is an important consideration for them. So very curious to see how all of that unfolds. And also, what's their M&A outlook going to be as a consequence of selling down as well? Because I don't think that for Chris, there's a constraint in relation to not enough good opportunities out there for him. I think he can see heaps of opportunities he wants to do, but the real constraint is just allocating capital, what gets the highest priority in terms of utilising limited capital to pursue these opportunities. So what's first? Is it energy, like we've talked about? Is it lithium? Like he's been very active in recent history, or is it more iron ore that he wants to unlock? That's now available because of the whole road, and it's kind of low cost to bring that on, more cash cow stuff. Like, I'm kind of curious to see it. He will continue to be super active. I've got no doubt. I just don't know what ranks number one in the pecking order for them. Do you guys have thoughts?
What does come to mind is that old BHP saying of rather than looking at other assets, driving operational efficiency at what you've got, and like people don't appreciate how much value that always used to drive every buck saved there. So I think getting Onslow really right, operating as best as possible is a big focus over the next few years, half year. I mean, scaling up for a while to come yet.
Is that going to be their biggest earner, Onslow?
That's their biggest project.
The moment the whole road's finished and blah, 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 happy days, cash cow, Onslow, right, but once that cash is coming in and it's ramping up and from that point in time, where's he going to prioritise allocating? I think he's also talked about further capital recycling, maybe in relation to some of the energy stuff, to bring in a financial partner that can help fund some of the plans in energy. I think my personal intuition is energy will be a real big priority in terms of the relative pecking order, but it could be all three at the same time.
And as he said when he goes off his head about all the people arguing about the balance sheet, they do have a lot of levers to pull.
Oh, so many. So many. Yeah, heaps. Yeah, they can sell down heaps of stuff if they needed to or wanted to. There's no doubt about that.
The market, darling.
Sticking with iron ore, Deterra. Right, the bloody iron ore royalty company.
Fuck, how good are they?
Are they going to do a deal ever? So when I was researching,
do they have to?
Oh,
No,
God.
they don't have to do a deal, but they have to strip out the corporate costs if they're not doing a deal.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
Bloody
Yes.
I wouldn't force them to do a bad deal, but they don't need to have the overheads they're having if they're not going to do a deal.
You could
One or
just
the
have a
other.
COSEC, couldn't you? Just to
Mate.
put the announcements out.
Just let me
We
do
could
it.
do
I can.
Just give us a buzz if you want to lower your corporate costs.
Yeah.
We can sort that out for you.
There's when I was researching MinRes's iron ore corridor that they sort of brought online with the whole road and all that sort of stuff. I learned about this company that just hadn't been on my radar, but it was so it's Red Hill Minerals. It used to be called Red Hill Iron. This is the company MinRes did a deal with. I think it was back early 2021. They basically got access to the Red Hills part of the JV that enabled MinRes to kind of develop its project, and heaps of the iron ores coming from those tenements. In exchange, Red Hill Minerals got a 0.75% royalty on all of the iron ore to come from that. So that thing there could be worth a bit of money depending on what the growth plans are in that whole region from an iron ore perspective. The company is capped at $415 million. I haven't done any of the numbers on the bloody on what the valuation of it should be based on the royalty. And I've also done zero research on how doable a deal would be based on their register. But mate, surely that's in the wheelhouse of Deterra to bloody.
So that ASX listed.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chuck her off. I might have to get a royalty watch list. She's bloody fill it up.
Mate, that deal when it was done, it was like an implied 400% premium, like kind of thing. Because if you think of it, like before the deal was announced, it was like, well, here are some tenements that there's no plan anyone's ever going to want these. And then all of a sudden, MinRes, by doing a deal, creates heaps of value. So that it was like an implied 400% premium, plus they got a royalty. It was crazy. Amazing.
Back to just on Ellison and everything, I found it interesting, the Galileo MinRes thing, the earn-in of it. Azure and Creasy was 60-40, 40 to Creasy.
Yeah.
Old Ellison ain't giving you, there's no 40% there. It's back to the 70-30. They can MinRes after Creasy will retain 30. So,
There you go.
yeah, I mean, might add a bit more, might have been a bit more, yeah. Listen here, young buck.
Rare earths, gents. So look, Linus and MP Materials is the mega merger that's been publicly rumoured to have a bit of momentum behind it. We know that Gina's got a minority position in both companies, and she's actually sort of substantial on both of them. As a shareholder, you can have some influence. Like I'd be surprised if we don't see a real red hot crack of that merger actually coming about, because that like the rationale to do it is kind of massive, you'd think.
Can Gina have, we're talking about how funds can be under a custodian or under their own name. Is that just for funds? Can Gina be holding shares under custodians
Absolutely.
through prime brokers and that, or like another through a broker?
Whether she would, I don't know, but there's no reason why she wouldn't be able to.
The moment you're substantial, you have to disclose all of your your whole web, though. You can't lie if you've got a beneficial interest in some way, shape or form.
Not that it hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the funds we talk about, it's probably it's in and out so quick that it doesn't.
Funds use things like equity swaps and stuff where they're not technically holding the stock. It's a whole nother ball game.
Oh, mate, before we get into copper, Trav, mineral sands, because Jesus, holy
I
stuff.
haven't finished on rare earths yet.
Oh,
Matty.
mate,
That's just
keep it. Just give it to me, baby.
So that's the big one, right, to look out for. Iluka, we know they've got a funding gap for any ABBA, and look, Linus, they've got a bloody cracking and leaching plant in Cal. That's not the whole process. It's just kind of, you can think of it, the first part of the whole bloody process. But
Shop front.
after the concentrator into that, and then anyway, there's another part after that, which was supposedly going to be down at any ABBA, but that's going to get kicked down the road because there's a big funding gap. So I just I'm very curious how the whole Iluka versus Linus dynamic plays out as well, because I think they say that they're not, but I think the reality is they're kind of competing for the same kind of marginal, free government dollar in some respects, and they both want access to as much of the critical minerals, bloody free money as possible. So just very curious how that plays out. Now, NTU is that Northern Minerals, that they've got the heavy rare earths Browns range deposit, which
Up north, eh?
yes, I think it was yesterday.
Concentrator, the one that's just going to do a concentrate.
Yeah.
Fuck it off.
Yesterday, the treasurer declared that the Chinese Yuzhou Fund and its associates must sell the stock. Pretty bloody big, bold decision.
Must sell down to 8.5%.
Yeah. So the selling of that down to 8.5%, I don't know if I haven't done the work to know if they're in play now. Like, so because they're actually up 17% intraday on the back of this. Iluka have a convertible with them, and Iluka have also got sort of, pretty a good amount of control baked into the offtake as well. So I don't necessarily think Iluka have the rationale to own them, but as a result of having sort of, a lot of that offtake kind of tied up already and all that sort of stuff. But I just wonder if there's a bit of a read through there that they might have a crack just because it's bloody up today. So anyway,
there's a bit of a story there that I think we need to do a bit of sniffing around with Nick Curtis, the Linus founder, stepping away or stepping down from the board into an advisory type role just last week.
Yeah,
I think there's a bit more than meets the eye to this one.
Yeah, and if you want your stake at free government money, having heavy rare earths, I think is a bloody surefire way to do it. So I think I can understand the imperative of either of the real rare earth contenders in Australia, be that Iluka and Linus, to kind of maybe want it if they can see a pathway to it being a real great bargaining chip. I don't know. And the last one, it's not really a rare earth, but WA1, ding ding ding,
Ding ding ding.
maiden resource coming soon. We're all keen to see the details of that. All keen to see the details of more met results. The stock's bloody volatile as all hell, but the thing that we're all keen to just get our hands on and learn about is how viable is the mining gonna be of that project.
Yeah, I think you compare it to bloody like lithium, like it's a similar to lithium. It's an oxide. 60. If they get 60% recovery, look at what the spod things are getting, 60 to 70%. This one's bloody high grade as anything. God, it looks like it'll be pretty forgiving as long as they can get that recovery above 50%. But it's more just if it doesn't work at all. But yeah.
Sometimes you got all these deleterious elements that could, not saying it's there in this case, but you just want more stuff out in the public when that resource comes out, just to for the whole. And if it's good, love to see, optimistically, love to see an incumbent kind of validate the viability as well. If you had one of the incumbents sort of, I don't know, some sign of interest in a JV or something, that would be great. But there's also a lot of downcase risk that it's not viable. So
no, it's like, God, you can imagine if CBMM come in as a freaking cornerstone. I'm sure that's the thing that all people are wanting to happen. I'm not sure of how that market. Hear numerous things that bloody, CBMM having WA1 is a chance for them to grow the market.
Yeah,
of niobium. It's not seen as competition. So
if I had a monopoly though, I'd probably still want to keep a monopoly.
Don't know. But like you've seen a bit. It sounds like it's all going to be driven by these small batteries for the scooters and all that. They're the niobium batteries. That's going to be that extra tick rather than the steel use. So it's whether that market takes off that provides the extra demand for it. But think of what WA1 is. Like, middle of buttfuck nowhere. Essentially got to build a frickin' similar to what Linus have built in Kalgoorlie and the mine and everything. Like, that is a fucking huge thing to consider.
I don't think they have to build it all in the middle of nowhere. So, I think I think they can
they'll just ship off the concentrate.
They can concentrate it and then just truck the concentrate and then build the rest.
Or they could build a second phase in Karratha or Port Hedland with more abundant resources and infrastructure and whatnot.
Yeah.
And to the point on the uptick, there is the case kind of for batteries and whatnot, but I do think it's sort of alloying benefits into the steelmaking process, which is far and away the dominant use of the product at the moment, that there can be even more growth. And from a buyer's perspective, a steelmaker's perspective, you'd want to see a couple more players out there, and that's going to have a whole host of benefits. Niobium, not saying the project works, going forward if you can make essentially steel lighter.
Totally. Yeah. And the other difference to lithium too, Matty, so lithium price is volatile. The niobium price, it's always the same.
Pricing, yeah.
It's always the same.
More just the
That's a bit of a
referring to the processing, but it's obviously the bit more of a with the rare earths, especially if they're going to float off a mixed rare earth bloody concentrate as well. Like it's like just a big fucking chemistry set.
Totally.
Bloody.
You'd have a field day.
As Stoiter says, rare earth. So, a bit bloody tough. Bloody copper. The red metal. Is it the red metal? Yeah, that's
Yes.
the red metal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was thinking
You skip
iron
mineral
ore.
sands.
Oh, you're talking about Iluka and fucking everything. Bloody, I keep forgetting their bloody.
Well,
both.
you mentioned mineral sands. They're related to the mighty rare earth. You're right. So Strandline is stranded. They've been stranded for a while. Lenders are on the hook and still tipping in more money because it's clearly not cash flow positive yet. Is the read through? That's the only reason you keep bloody writing more money for it.
Sell your other assets.
Yeah. Sheffield announced some trouble of its own Thursday last week. Were they going to need a capital injection at Thunderbird? This kind of they were the two developers that kind of came online around the same time, and they're both having some hurdles. I think Strandline's a bit more dire so far than Sheffield's appears to be. And also today, I noticed this Astron enter a JV with Energy Fuels. This is the other use case for the mighty mineral sands, Matty, is bloody these. Yeah, the monazite con and the rare earths and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, that's what this is all about, because this uranium company who's got the plant and because they've got this ability to handle radioactive stuff and all that sort of jazz, the ones that did the deal with Base, well, they've signed this JV where they're going to tip in $183 million for 49% of Astron's Donald project, because they obviously have the interest in the monazite con at the plant for rare earths.
Yeah, right.
In the US. Anyway, it all just seems
Really
fascinating.
interesting. Yeah.
Fuck, she's all bloody go, mate. No one. Who said mineral sands was not interesting? Fucking no one ever.
No one.
Oh, mate, everyone's been hanging on for copper.
Yes.
Bloody, you can't say the R word in this. The RF word, JD. Is he in here?
I'm not sure where this obsession of mine has come from, but
At least we're not talking about you being a tight ass anymore. It's about how much you love Robert Friedland.
Oh, I thought you meant Rodney Forrest.
you pull one string.
Oh, what's
All right.
going on in the bit going on in the copper? The copper, fuck it, it's bloody interesting.
This is like everyone wants copper, right? This is
JD
the
called
thing.
it months ago.
Yeah,
Treatment charges. It's all going off on JD's bloody
He
analysis.
sees the future. There's no shortage of companies out there wanting copper assets, right? Everyone bloody wants a copper project. That's the massive trend at the moment. And if you look at who's hyper acquisitive in the space, well, what does MAC do? Metals Acquisition Corp, right? What do they do first? Because I expect them to make a move in the next 6 months. I reckon. Like they're all of their messaging was we're going to buy stuff, and I do think they will, right? That's makes sense for them to buy stuff. Makes sense for them to raise money when they buy stuff, and just have a more appropriate kind of leverage dynamic at the same time. And are they going to be a natural consolidator in the Cobar, and to the extent consolidation is even sort of warranted in that region? Who are they going to buy first? Right. That's I'm really interested to watch that. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, there's no like CSA, like the grade and everything like that's. It's just even though it's bloody deep, but it's the knockout sort of asset in that region, and everything else is really contingent on prices going off their head to be a really good cash generating operation. But yeah, prices are heading in that direction. So there's no one else that pops into mind to think, because if you're going to consolidate the Cobar region, no one's going to do it without MAC. So it's Mac's it's like Mackey's the only one to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo your thoughts there, Matty. All the other assets sort of are a tier below CSA. We saw the deal they did with Polymetals. I think that's as far as that deal will kind of go. But there's no other copper assets all have a big price tag on them at the moment. And they have for a while, because people have always been anticipating this kick up in price. So it's hard to do a good deal.
Yeah. One person said to me not too long ago, kind of in reference to when BHP bought Oz Minerals, and it's kind of like it was like the market was made aware, and then BHP came back 4 months later and wrapped it up for a very minor uplift. So the 3-3 was no one else came to the party with another bid. And the person said to me, if that had have happened today, like there'd be like 3 or 4 other people that would have,
shit, yeah.
would have bloody, had a bid in there. So it's the whole dynamic in terms of the majors and their attitudes and thinking towards copper has changed. That ripples all the way down. And so I think just this whole kind of land grab and desire for copper is insane. It's kind of, as large as I've ever seen it. Even all the gold companies want as much copper in their production as possible as, for their own identity crises. And in the Queensland copper complex, I find that one really interesting. I think that's kind of prime for activity as well, right? So the state government has shitloads of money after jacking up royalties on coal companies out there, and they're giving giant licks of that to individual companies for infrastructure, which might unlock some of the synergies in the region too. Glencore's probably not going to shut down their smelter just yet, but they need feed. And that's a fascinating dynamic as well, because maybe for the first time some of these companies can even have a leg up on Glencore in some way, shape or form. But
like, fuck Queensland, like God, there's a lot of companies that have torched some shareholders up there.
So many.
Fucking True North, Cooper Metals, like
Austral, that
have really bloody
Cadeco.
True North bloody. Well, they IPO'd at 25 cents and raised at 12.5, raised again at 5.8 or something like that.
APAC are there now, mate.
Oh,
just yesterday.
Yeah, it's just it looks bloody hard going in the small end of Copper Town. It just seems such a hard thing to convert. Like just so you just need that little bit of scale about you. 'Cause it seems like those small ones just.
Yeah.
Fucking nothing's really doing anything.
Yeah, I think in Queensland there are some limitations to realising synergies that could be on offer, be it the lack of a sufficient haul road connecting, to like 2 deposits, for example. Yeah. Those sorts of things can be unlocked if the government comes in and, as part of its whole critical minerals buddy fund, actually develop some of the infrastructure that can unlock real synergies, and that might be important, and it might help things out from that perspective. But overhanging all of the Queensland copper kind of dynamic as well is the calamity that's been sort of 29 Metals and Cap Copper out that way. Like they're still pleading for an underground payout on their insurance, and it's like been more than a year now. I can't remember how long, but it's like definitely over a year it's been, and sort of no update on that front.
Yeah. Oh God, it'd be an interesting quarterly coming up, because God, if zinc and copper's going up as much as it has, and bloody Golden Grove still can't make positive cash flow, Jesus Christ, that company is in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Even like disregard the insurance payout, like, which sounds like they bloody need it, but God, if they haven't made money now, yeah. So where is this underground payout up to? Where's bloody you should have called the CRE boys about this, mate.
I've been doing my homework on the very point you talk about here, because I'm trying to understand the likelihood of a potential lifeline on its way for 29 Metals. I really want to figure out their funding dynamics, and I will disclose I've got this intel from the CRE boys, but who better to go to for it?
It helps when they sponsor us. So fucking easy call.
As I understand the dynamics for 29 Metals, right? Mining companies, they basically get these insurance policies that typically, they include 2 key coverage areas. One is, your insurance for the property damage or the key assets, and the other one is losses from business interruption, right? Like, fuck, we're offline, therefore I want. But the way to think about it is these two parts. There's a maximum limit associated with all the coverage. It's called this sublimit, and to this number, the sublimit, or it's basically the way to think about that is the maximum payout under all circumstances. It's the upper bound of what's being underwritten by the insurer. So even if an asset like Cap Copper is worth 300 mil, for example, right, the sublimit won't be 300 million bucks. You're never going to be potentially able to claim it all. There's this upper bound, right?
So it's like the limit of the liability.
Totally. Yeah. To the underwriter. And it's usually much lower, especially if it's a smaller miner. And what we know right now is a total of 40 million has been paid, or authorised to be paid to date to 29 Metals under their insurance coverage, and they attribute that to the surface claim for Cap Copper, and there's been this back and forth about the underground claim, right? But the total sublimit for 29 Metals policy might only be 50 million. In fact, that'd be pretty typical for it to only be about 50 million. So all of this,
And is that's for the whole site or the
whole cap copper. You could think
that
of
surface, underground, fucking everything.
Yeah. Like
right.
it's the sub limit is the maximum liability. Your underwriter's kind of on the hook for, including business interruptions, including property damage, all that sort of stuff. So imagine it's 50 million, right? Which I don't know what the sub limit is for their insurance, but imagine it is, which would be typical. Then kind of like the whole argument over underground coverage might even be irrelevant in its entirety. But yeah, mate, thanks to Adam, Dave, and Steve at Sarah Insurance, because I'm all the wiser about this insurance coverage stuff now.
Did you call the landline and one of the owners picked up again?
They pick up
Fucking number.
Mate, their number is just on their website.
So humble blokes, very humble, eh?
If miners are out there and they want to make sure they don't end up in an insurance pickle,
and CRE, their number one rule is we'll get you the correct sub limit. So you're never in the shit. New company motto. Okay, copper.
You've got a copper one at Greatland.
I'll start with develop.
Okay.
Oh, develop. How bloody... I'll show you. I'll bring up the spark chart. She's been tracking along sideways for a while now. Definitely. Can you... down 50% from its all-time high.
Yep. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So obviously they got a lot bigger with the a bit bigger with taking on the script of Essential, but Woodlawn's a very interesting one, and all because I always think when Bill Beeman is quiet, which he is at the moment, he's fucking lot going. It's because he's working. He's working in the background. He's probably working all the time, but he's real quiet. Like having bloody He does it. Yeah. So. Like the last study there's been numerous restart studies. They get better every time because they do more work in between the studies, so the studies look better.
Yeah.
But the last one come out in April, so about $42 to restart it. Now, like today's copper price, $10,017 US a ton. Zinc, $28.87. I'll bring up the price deck that Develop used for their restart study. You fast forward to years 5 and 6, and that is what is in the price deck for today's copper price. So it shows that like the prices are well ahead of what they need to restart it effectively. Now, look, we've heard, I think it was Cav mentioned, and that they might be looking for a partner to do this with, and we're like more thinking like, why is that? Like, why doesn't Bill just fucking debt fund it? Or I know he doesn't want to raise equity, or maybe hold off and probably wouldn't be able to fund it from cash flows from contracting because it might take a while to build up. But, it could be with like a downstream partner like a Japan or a Korea. So the rise of Japan and Korea, boys.
Another thing.
It's fucking it's all happening. That JD talking about treatment charges is me talking about Japan and Korea. We're going to come in 6 months and say, Matty, you were all over it. So, but why is Develop waiting to turn Woodlawn back on? Prices are at years 5 and 6. They got $36 in the bank as of last quarter. They'll get so you would assume they might get a little bit of free cash from Bellevue, Mount Marion, and Beta Hunt contracts. Beta Hunt's probably going to be short-lived if this Westgold Karora merger goes through. I can't see Westgold utilising Develop as a contractor if they've got their own owner-operator division, or they mightn't be able to get the gear and all the gear and people they need. But I assume they will buy the gear from Karora because I think Karora is owner-operator. Yeah, they are. So they will have the gear. So I couldn't see that being a long one. Especially for Woodlawn.
Why would they buy the gear?
Well,
they'd get it.
Yeah, because they're buying Karora. Fuck, you're all over it, JD. Yeah, true. When they announce FID for Woodlawn, they're got to pay the administrators. They bought it off $20.
Yeah,
and then
triggers a payment.
Or like there was more money paid for the reserves. But there's $50 million remaining in contingent payments. So $20 when they announce FID, so that can be in scrip, doesn't have to be cash.
Yeah,
and then they also have to pay an additional $30 after 18 months of continuous commercial production.
And just on the cash, Matty, you say 36. and a restart cost of 42. I think the number from Develop's latest deck was a max drawdown of 68 as well. So there is that period before you start really earning the cash back as well. That needs to be, bear that one in mind.
Yeah. So I guess the dynamics of Develop. So because Bill owns, I think, fully diluted about 23% of Develop. So big equity stake. Was a bit higher previously, but I think it used to be about 30, but then the essential deal and all that I think's dropped in because he's got, 20 odd million options to convert. So he hasn't converted them yet at 75 cents. So he won't want to dilute himself, no doubt, with an equity raise or dilute the other shareholders. Taking on bank debt for this restart, that's another option. But would you want to take on bank debt with $50 million worth of contingent payments due within 18 months?
On an asset that has a checkered history as well?
Yeah. So, and I think that might be, look, it's an option, but I guess there's a lot of moving parts with Develop, and we'll go through the rest of it. So that's probably a bit risk. So you consider those two things. It lines up well. You can see why you probably might want to offload 20% of Woodlawn or something to a fucking POSCO or some South. I don't know. I've got to get up to date on all the players in South Korea and Japan since I'm such an enthusiast for it now. But like offloading. Or streaming some of the copper out's another option for the financing. So I'm sure there's plenty of things to play, but it looks like this $20 that has to be paid on announcement of FID is till that finance is figured out and how they're going to deal with that. That's probably holding everything up. But I think there have to be something coming soon.
Yeah.
Or he might hold back for another bloody 6 months and wait till the copper price. If the copper price goes up more, he'll make more money.
Well, is Pioneer Dome? Do you think that'll, actually get a good chunk of attention, or does it really just depend on what that dynamic is like between Bill and Chris?
Yeah, because I can't.
I
know they put out the restart, the study for it. Like I cannot see them building a plant there. Like
no, it'll go to Chris. But now that Lake Johnson's off the table,
and I think that's what. But Lake Johnson was about 160 k's away, I think, from Pioneer Dome. So look, it's fucking doable. It'd be easier to truck it. You still got to convert Lake Johnson into a bloody lithium.
I think Poseidon Nickel might have something to say about that now.
Yeah, I know, but like now that the MinRes thing fell over, it's like, oh well, maybe we'd look at that and do the convert there. But
you wouldn't want to piss off Chris, you know what I mean? You kind of got to play the long game.
When you got the Mount Marion contract with him.
You got to play the long game. So
and that's more capex, which they don't exactly have the cash for.
No, but so can't see him building a plant. Easiest thing, chuck it in bloody Bald Hill or Mount Marion. Oh, I think I'm still not sold that there won't be a developed MinRes thing
at some point
in the future.
Yeah.
And it's whether and what that looks like, I don't know. I'm not sold that like
it's off the table.
It's off the table. The bills are there. They're gonna, consumers won. I don't know, but I'm ready for anything. It's just like, or even if it's like a bit of an alliance, whereas Develop is the part of the alliance with MinRes to do all their underground work for them at, Mount Marion and everything. So, Pioneer don't like, and Pioneer looking at the numbers, like looks pretty simple. Vertical underground mine, bloody trucker up the road, and bloody someone else's problem to process it. So,
Matty, you're not normally shy of a prediction. What's the next big thing for Develop?
Do
you think he stays quiet until the
because you got Sulphur Springs as well. Then because they're in the news a bit with the annex thing with Wim Creek. Like there's just a lot of little copper shit going on. But fucking mad. The toughest thing that's going to is always the biggest bottleneck for this operation, probably in relation to Pioneer Dome, is going to be water. So the sooner James Harrington gets down there to bloody find all the friggin' water from WA water bores, maybe that's what Bill's waiting on. Because WA water bores has been pretty busy, so it's probably until James gets down there, starts drilling the paleo channels to, just get the monitoring bores set up, get the bore field installation done, the bloody piezo's,
It's right in his neck of the woods.
Yeah, and I think that'll just be that last box to tick before pulling the trigger.
Well, we saw what happened to the share price of the last company they did a bit of work for. We won't mention the name, but it was just the impact that WA Water Bores has when they come and do a bit of work on your site.
Yeah, I've actually, I won't say who the broker was, but I actually saw it on a research note recently that they attributed some share price lift and an increase of valuation to the use of WA water bores.
You start seeing it on some research notes, when they mention the catalysts coming up.
Yeah.
WA Water Bores start there next month,
Yeah.
Forget drill programs starting,
Yeah, it's just
Index inclusion.
Amazing
means
what a
nothing.
bloody soul to the earth character from Gero can do for the stock market. It's fucking unbelievable.
It really is.
Mate, imagine here's something out there and this got burned on Friday. I don't think it's got any substance to it, but geez, the more shit I say, the more chance I might get something one day. Oh, Greatland Gold was up 14%.
Late Friday.
Friday, yeah. Like, God, it hasn't been talked about for a while. Come back down 5% yesterday.
Apparently there was a Sprott rebalance.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Getting in the index.
Yeah, your mate Stewie Hines.
Oh,
yeah,
he's all over it.
all over it.
Yeah, but irregardless of that, like good old Havieron, it's still sitting there. So Greatland, for those who don't know, Greatland have the 30% stake in Havieron up near Telford. Newmont have the rest. So, what is it? 1.6 billion ounces, 73,000 tonne of copper. So it's a gold mine. On today's revenues, it's about 5 parts gold to 1 part copper. So they actually gave a development update end of April. It's so weird when you go to these development updates. It's all just plain text dot points. Like there's no investor relations over there. I like that. Just type the bastard up.
And their own chat forum.
Yeah, I like it. So they're actually developed. They've developed a bit over 3K's worth, and there's approximately 80 vertical metres of development remaining before the decline reaches the top of the Havieron ore body. So they're actually getting pretty bloody close to like the ore body. So like 80% of the vertical distance complete to get down there. So even though it's a gold mine, it's still got a little bit of copper there, similar to Telfer. Here's fun facts with Matt. Telfer used to pump out between 20 and 40,000 tonne of copper per year.
That sounds about right.
It's a good chunk of copper.
Didn't know that.
600,000 ounces a year. Boddington, about 30,000 tonne of copper.
Didn't know that either.
Get this, Cadia East pumps out about 100,000 tonne of copper per year.
Had no idea.
Fuck.
Actually, I think I did know that.
Yeah, Cadia looks
I didn't know it
a
was
lot
that much.
richer in copper per ounce. It's fucking huge.
Yeah.
But keen to see what plays out with this Havieron project, as a few people are. Remember Twiggy got a bit active in copper recently? Was it through Wyloo?
Magmatic,
Yeah.
Fortescue was doing it. Yeah.
Wyloo was the biggest shareholder in Greatland.
Yeah.
After they tipped in the
The whole
$120
board's
bucks.
stacked with Wyloo.
The board is
FMG.
stacked with ex-Fortescues.
Ex-Fortescues. Like Mark Barnabas there. I think Elizabeth Gaines is
Elizabeth
there.
Gaines,
It's like-
yeah.
It's just like
It's so transparent.
lots of, yeah.
Yeah. So with that Twiggy holding of Greatland, even though it's only 30%, would that be a deterrent for other interlopers, or would it just be not significant enough?
How much do they own, sorry?
8 and a bit percent.
I think they've got,
8.6.
I'm going to have to check. I think they've got some debt that can,
Yeah,
can
$50
convert,
million
which can
secured
convert
facility.
to equity.
Unsecured facility. And
Unsecured.
that converts, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the pathway to control is complicated.
Yeah,
But-
so I think that'd be a bit of a deterrent for other people, I'd assume.
But Wyloo might have a price as well. I mean, like if someone wanted that, why do you want? Let's say you had a positive view on Havieron. Why does it make sense to get to Havieron via Greatland? It's because Greatland get the right of last refusal on the other half of Havieron, which which Newmont is selling in a package with Telfer, but in reality, no one's probably going to want Telfer. They're only potentially going to want Havieron. And you as Greatland kind of get to be the kingmaker at the end of the day because you've got the right of last refusal.
Yeah. So, surely there's it'd be interesting to see the exploration around Telfer. What other opportunities there? But if they downscaled the mill to, the one train, which is 12 or 13. So that's it's just interesting. Wait, do you think anyone that wanted copper would go up and take 10,000 tonne of copper a year, but mine the gold as well?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
That's just talking about Havieron. Obviously, Telfer would have, if they could get.
There's a lot of gold companies
Telfer.
A lot of gold companies are bragging about their copper production these days. I mean, we talked about Evolution; they've done it for years. But I saw this City note yesterday from Kate McCutcheon, and it was sort of talking about the impact of a higher copper price on Evolution's NAV is pretty obscene. Of course, they've got basically pure play copper assets these days. But there's a lot of gold companies out there. I mean. Even look at Barrick with Rico Dick, like that's a huge copper endowment there that's kind of baked into it. Newmont have heaps of these things, like you talked about. So
I think I look at, the history of Telfer, this potential underground mine, would Develop do something random like that? Would Ramelius do something random like this?
Whoa, that's left field.
If you've got a fuckload of cash and you're going gold, get a bit of copper. Doesn't mean you have to be a pure gold miner forever. Who knows? Wow. But I've said it and it's recorded. So fucking that's all that bloody matters.
Oh, done, Matty.
Oh, mate, that's.
I got some more in the copper sphere while we're on.
What's going on in copper?
So I think here's my kind of wildish predictions on consolidation in copper. I think both South 32 and IGO will want to buy Sandfire now. Keep in mind, Sandfire is run by Brendan Harris, who's ex-South 32. And I just, even re-listening to the convo you guys had with Fisty in relation to IGO, their identity crisis, what do they do now? They can't. So it's kind of well known that they can't do anything in lithium without their JV partner. So kind of put a line through them doing anything material in lithium land. What can they do? Like nickel's just been a bloody disaster for them. They're just not going to have but they have to do something. Like Fisty said, the status quo is not an option. I think the deal that makes sense for them to do is merge with Sandfire. And then at the same time, I think South 32 have had this very strong appetite for a very long time to get more and more copper in their portfolio, and I think they would want it too.
Fuck, how?
Don't know if valuation stacks up, by the way.
But how do you sell it to Sandfire? Look, we've got some assets that we've chucked a shaft in, but we're not using. We've got a fucking non-controlling interest in Greenbushes. Is it buyable?
If you get enough, I don't know. But if enough premium gets deals done, sure,
So if they give Sandfire a premium, buy Sandfire at a premium, what's the relative market caps?
I think IGO's got a couple bill on them.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nickel's interesting at the moment. The bit of a lift with, it's all on the back of Russian nickel and the LME, isn't it, JD? Around that. And there was an article the other day about some potential
what's going on in
supply issues in Indonesia as well.
What's happening in New Caledonia as well has had a bit of a influence as well.
Yeah,
nickel producing country, it's had some unfortunate protests and riots in the country there. Yeah,
I want to talk to a nickel laterite expert that has been on the ground in Indo across the whole Sulawesi thing, just to get some context on how long this could last for. If it's decades of fucking supply, and it just keeps going and going and going, or what could be the thing that could potentially disrupt it? Because fuck me dead, imagine if that, and that just speaks to nickel as a commodity. Like if there was any slight disruption of that, all those laterites in Indonesia, holy snapping duck shit, you'd go off its tits.
Yeah.
That's right. I've got one more to add, fellas. I'll cut the rest of them because I think we're on a PB for length here. But I got one good one.
Hey, if we're interested, JD, every other fucking bastard.
That's right. So there's one I'm quite interested to see how it plays out, and that's Anglo's asset sale of its Aussie met coal assets specifically. So just to get people up to speed, if they're not, they've got 5 met coal assets in the Bowen Basin. Unit cost US $115 a tonne, forecast for 2024. That's a bit of an improvement on last year. We're talking 16 million tonnes of production last year, and there's some incremental growth over the next few years. They're targeting 20 million tonnes of production by 2026 at a $100 US unit cost. That's before the royalties, which are a big point of contention out there.
Yeah, so about what, 100% margin on that, eh?
Well, they did 1.3 billion in EBITDA in 23 at a EBITDA margin of 32%. So, yeah, that'd come down. If you're looking at the pricing, Matty, about 80% is HCC, 20% PCI. So they realised almost US $280 a tonne last year in 2023.
And what, producing it for about half that? Once you put the royalties and everything in.
A bit over, yeah. Yeah, a bit over that. So, I mean, there's substantial CapEx spent, 620 million spent on CapEx. It's nothing to sort of sniff at. And it was interesting to hear Duncan had said they'd already received bids for the assets. So we'll see how quickly a deal could happen. I think you've got the kind of usual suspects in Whitehaven, Yancoal, Stanmore, Peabody, BHP and Glencore. I think they'll definitely be interested too. I think some people had been discounting them. I don't think you can. I think BHP would definitely be interested. I mean, we saw that from their presentations alone. I'm not sure if you guys had thoughts or predictions on the potential buyers.
Trav, you'd have to have something.
Yeah,
you put your life's work into this fucking deal.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. Like, I think it's a non-consensus view that like BHP will put their hat in the ring. I think all their public messaging to date is that they won't. But I think your public messaging, of course, would be that way when you are still lobbying kind of pretty hard for a reversion in the royalty regime in Queensland, and until there's I don't know when the election is, but there's change of government and a reversion of that kind of onerous royalty of some description. I think only then will they be public in any way, shape, or form of their signalling their ambitions in that region. I think BHP can realise the most synergies because they've got the latent port infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
So.
And in terms of how a deal gets structured, we saw BHP be very generous to Whitehaven in that deal, essentially to an extent financing the deal for Blackwater and Daunia for Whitehaven to come and buy them. I think Anglo's a bit more desperate. They're not quite as big an organisation, so I don't think the financing terms would be as friendly as BHP.
Yeah. I think the market's moved a bit too, and there's a greater appetite than there was before when Blackwater and Daunia came up for market. They're also better assets than Blackwater and Daunia.
Yeah, don't doubt that at all. Just in terms of how you finance the deal, I think it'd be slightly different. I don't think you'd have those sort of terms like
utilising
BHP.
the balance sheet.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Not to a party that actually has funding capability like BHP. Like
yeah.
If BHP asked for bloody vendor finance, you'd be like, get fucked.
Yeah, exactly. And on a slightly different note, one other thing I'm looking out for is Whitehaven's sell down of 20%. I think is the number of Blackwater to a steel producer in all likelihood to help fix up that balance sheet. And maybe if they do that, they are firmly in line to chuck in another bid. I know they'd be a bit stretched over the next couple of years. They'd probably wish it would come up for sale, this Anglo assets, that is, in a year or two's time. But if they can get some cash in, shore up things, maybe they'll have another go and they'll be looking like a very different company in a couple of years' time. Who knows?
I reckon they'll need equity to do it, which the market might even be okay with.
Yeah, could be. I mean, what that could do to the business would be pretty wild.
Fuck, we're way too aligned today.
I got one more. I've got to chuck this in the ring. I know we're running over time.
Have you got anything that we can disagree on?
Maybe. Right. So I'm watching Gina. I'm on Gina Watch big time. She is as active as ever, and she is fixated on the energy theme. If you ever want to get a good idea of what Gina is wanting to do, the only place you can really get that insight is go on Hancock Prospecting's website, click the news tab, and you'll see all of the media references to Hancock and just spend a couple hours going through the last few dozen things, and you'll get a real grasp of her policy agenda. Why I think this is important to get a grasp of, because there is no single person in Australia that has as much political influence as she does. Her fixation on the energy theme lately is fascinating to me. She's big on wanting low cost energy in Australia to have any chance of competitiveness. She's got $19 billion of cash, so hence the insane political influence that she's got. And like, the whole kind of macro saying out there, don't fight the Fed. I kind of think of that saying in relation to Gina. Like, you don't want to be on the other side. Just don't fight Gina. Just be on her. Like, if you want to bloody win in these markets, just be on the same side as Gina. Is kind of my gut feel on some of these things. So yeah, I'm watching her really closely. My very left field bet is that Gina might rise in relative popularity versus Twiggy just because he's going to wear a lot. He's going to have to eat a bit of face on the whole hydrogen fucking pipe dream, and she's probably going to start speaking sense on the nuclear stuff.
Oh, he needs to eat his humble pie there and team up with her to make it happen.
He goes very big in billionaire land, but Gina's the worst. Like whenever she speaks, you're like, that is, I'm not very drawn to it, but
not inspiring.
I would put it that way diplomatically.
I think she works in the shadows, but
massive political
speak
influence.
much.
Massive political influence. Massive. $19 billion has a lot of fucking political influence in this state, in this country.
Oh, I can't believe Twiggy hasn't identified that hydrogen will be a thing, but it'll be one of many things. So why not fucking, there's going to be nuclear, renewables, hydrogen, fucking this gas, bloody, and probably still a bit of coal. It's just going to need everything to transition. I just can't understand why they don't fucking realise that and put balls in a lot of courts instead of just saying, no, we're hydrogen.
We need the insane investment from them, because we didn't Australia didn't set up a bloody crazy sovereign wealth fund. We let the royalties accrue to these billionaires.
No Norway here, brother.
We actually need their dollars now to bloody go into the insane infrastructure to stay competitive in the long run. So yeah.
They'll argue, well, we gave you shitloads of royalties, so why didn't you save them?
I think we're in agreement once more, lads.
Oh, God, that's boring.
Fucking boring.
Righto, thanks to all the bloody partners, as always. Who do we have in the show, boys? James at WA Waterboards, propelling Pioneer Dome.
And CRE Insurance.
Should have saved 29 medals.
If no further.
They were involved. It would have been 100 million.
We've also got VRIFY, GetWet Solutions, DSI Underground,
Silverstone,
Brooks Airways,
NK Drill.
Hootaroo.
Hey, who do you use for trade, JD?
I use Spark.
Spark. You don't trade, you look at what to trade.
Analysis.
Just shows you everything. You want to see movies about stock charts? Get Spark. Hootaroo.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.